Gloria in excelsis Deo.
Gloria in excelsis Deo. Welcome to the stream of truth. I'm Dr. Tassel Faith Shamebrook.
And I'm Sean Kelly.
And today's topic is common pitfalls to peaceful communication. Wow. If I may say, Sean and I have been, I would say, experiencing a lot of pitfalls in our peaceful communication. And this is why, at least I wanted to do this topic today, because I want to really keep learning how to communicate peacefully. I think what could be more important between people and between countries and between institutions, and I mean, even just the current news, with the Will Smith, Chris Rock situation. There's just, wow, peace is so important.
I have to share something that you brought that up.
Yeah.
I don't know what this means, but I wonder who has a alopecia treatment coming out.
Oh yeah, I know. I read something like that.
I wonder who is the sponsor of the.
Yeah. Yes.
Who
knows?
I wonder
Maybe.
what happened with all of these paid actors.
Yes.
Like expert actors. I wonder about that.
We don't know if it was real or staged. I don't know. Who knows?
I think I saw Jada respond, like her body language when the joke was said. I think her response was genuine. The rest of it, who knows? But
yeah, who knows? But I think it's clear that lack of peaceful communication is rampant. It's almost like,
so
for me,
don't slap people. Is that what you? Or do you mean don't make fun of illness? Or
yeah, I mean, all of that. I'm just thinking back to my marriage, for instance, and to me, whether we stayed together or not so important. To me, were we able to have peace with each other and move through things with some elegance? That to me is what's important. Like, whatever happens with the relationship, happens, but can we move through our interactions with people in peace? Like, that's really all I care about. I just care that we do things in peace. Whatever ends up happening happens, but can we do it with some grace and peace? Yeah. So Sean and I have been having some really challenging interactions with each other. And I feel that I had a breakthrough this morning about something that I can do differently that has been really affecting our relationship and our interaction. And thank you, Sean, for teaching me this. It's
I don't think I taught you anything, but I appreciate your sentiment.
Yeah, well, I feel that you did. This was something I did not really see. I didn't really see it, and it's taken me a while to get it. And you've been trying to show me, and it took me a while to get it. So maybe I'll just say what it is. The way you've termed it, which I think is excellent, is feedback only with positive emotionality. Okay, so basically this means we're sort of contrasting this with criticism. I think, and I'd like to hear your definition, but criticism maybe would be feedback with negative emotionality. Is that how you would term it?
Yeah, criticism is somehow critical of reality. Somehow reality is discerned through perception to be not appropriate, not desired, not desired. Um, so any criticism would be anything that suggests that what is not somehow not correct or not perfect, basically. So and that's so that's the main, I think the main challenge with it is that we are all brought up and believe and also have karmic sort of energy fields in us that suggest to us that this is desirable and this is undesirable. So it becomes really challenging to speak about enhancement to anything or change, positive change, without referencing the disappointment in what was judged as undesired. So yeah, I would say criticism, you know, there's a difference, like we've said before, between feedback and criticism. But so criticism would be something that sort of just indicates that something else is not good enough the way it happened. So like it could be a past thing, or a future plan is not proper, it's not the right plan, or the moment is not correct somehow. Anything like that. So it's a pretty wide gamut. And because we're so used to unconsciously criticizing everything due to our fear, our egoic self tends to want to try to control the next moment so that it's the desired moment, right? So it will reference whatever fear story from past that it can to rationalize that behavior, and all of that activity is fear-based. So it creates more fear-based energy, more it's essentially basically operating under the conditions that reality should be, how I discern as my human limited self, how I decide it should be. Whereas feedback would be, at least just to me, this is how I see these things. Feedback would be offering something that is meant to be constructive on and that is offered to perhaps influence positive change. It's not necessarily tied to you know, the individual's personal like opinions on it so much. And if it is, then it's kind of clear that it's an opinion. Yeah, I don't know if that makes it any sense at all.
Yeah, but it would be okay if I bring up an example.
Yeah, but I don't know if I want to talk about our stuff.
Okay.
Because it's gonna sound like I'm being critical when I comment, and I don't want to do that.
Okay. I want to give a real example.
Okay, I mean, you can. I guess just let me put a disclaimer, like I don't see flaw here, really. Unless I get really hurt, I don't see problems. So I'm not suggesting there's ever a problem, but I can observe behaviors and say this behavior was born of a lie, for example, and that just means that it was born of fear. But it's not meant to be critical. Fear's a component to what we evolve out of. So I just don't want to cause any upset, I guess, is
Upset towards me?
yeah, I don't want to I don't want to, I don't want it to sound like I'm saying there's a problem with anything. Good morning, Joe, and good morning, Jamie.
Um, I I I think it'll be fine. And I don't want to act from fear. So I would like to just say the example if you're okay with it.
Yeah, I'm good with whatever.
Okay. So because I just think examples like can flesh out the specifics of what we're talking about in an abstract way. Um, so what was it last week? Okay, so last week we had a gathering on Thursday night, and you received some information that you were unexpectedly going to have your kids on Thursday night. And usually you put your kids to bed at 8 o'clock Eastern time, which was the time of the start of the meeting. And you texted me, I don't think I can come to the meeting. And then you explained why.
It was like Monday or Tuesday I texted, right? So it was a few days early, I think, right?
Yeah, it was a couple of days earlier. And I had a hard time with the experience. And I didn't talk to you about it immediately. I went for a walk. I felt my feelings. I think I cried a bit, and I ended up talking to your higher self. And I was actually just hoping to just leave it at that it wasn't anything we even needed to talk about. And then something else happened that brought up similar feelings in me. And then I thought, oh, maybe this is something I'm supposed to talk about. And then we talked about it. And I realized that when I talked about it, I was bringing negative emotionality to it. I was basically feeling, I think, that something was off with the way we handled it together. And I was trying to say things like, it'd be my preference if we could talk about these things together, if we could partner around them, if we could make decisions for highest and best for all. But I think the energy I was holding about it was that something wrong had happened. So, and then I think you felt criticized. And then it kind of created, I would say, distance and tension between us. And we ended up having a very difficult texting conversation around it, where I think you were, pretty upset because you have felt that is how I've interacted with you a lot over our relationship, that I will experience something and deem it as like not highest and best and not right, and then come to you with that energy. Does that seem accurate? Okay. So, so this morning, I feel like I finally sort of could see that. I feel I could really see that. And what really helped me see that was that no matter what my words are, it's like my thinking mind wants to be at peace and wants to say things in the highest and best way. But if I'm still holding like some energy of resentment or wrongness, then you feel that. So I think that's what really helped me understand it is it feels like we are all being invited in our ascension process to not judge, and to move out of duality, to move out of this is right, this is wrong, and certainly not to judge others. So I'm really grateful for the teaching. I think I get it. And just because in a way I want to practice, I want to just practice what would have been a more, I mean, of course, so again, I can't really judge myself either, right? What I did actually also was perfect for everyone.
Yep.
But so towards myself, I must also carry a positive emotionality around it too. And like, not even forgive myself. There's like nothing to forgive. That was what was perfect for everyone, for me to talk like that. But like going forward, if that situation came up again, or, you know, something like that, where it felt like, oh, maybe this is something we could talk about, I could say, the situation was hard for me. I also know it was perfect. And I'm just curious if there's a way moving forward of doing something that could bring just more harmony to me and to our interaction.
I'm going to suggest something, and it might not sound great. And I'm not suggesting anyone's ever doing anything wrong. That's sort of my whole point that I'm trying to make with when we were talking about these things. No one's done anything wrong. What is there to discuss around the problem that doesn't exist? What is there to correct about an issue that is unreal? What can be done to correct something that is not a problem? So what I mean is that when we approach our partner and say, all of this thing that just happened yesterday or the day before, or the weeks before, the years before, that fantasy I lived in of problem and fear and pain, it is a fantasy. It's a fantasy of our mind, and that's what it is. And we can invite people to speak with us about it, of course. I'm not saying we shouldn't, but I am saying that when we're coming into a discussion about the fantasy, about the illusion of someone did something wrong, I think primarily you felt not included in the decision-making process, I think is what you were primarily sort of saying. You didn't feel partnered in the decision-making process, right? If I remember,
not really that I would have had to be part of the decision making, but just, yeah, I just felt like not included at all in the beginning.
So I guess, would you say that like you probably wouldn't say that my intention is to not include you in things, right? Like
Right.
Generally speaking, my intention has always pretty much been to be inclusive of all we do, and I think so from that alone we can kind of notice that what was seen and perceived was not really likely what happened, right? That's not so.
Well,
Even so, because the feelings come up, that doesn't mean that the situation occurred the way we have framed it.
yeah, and maybe I could just say that the biggest part of it to me was you saying you don't think you can come to the meeting, but the meeting is usually like 2.5 hours long. And normally I think you put your kids to bed, I don't know, half hour, hour. So I had confusion about why you couldn't come to the meeting at
Right.
all.
But you didn't say any of that, right? You just you just didn't say anything, which is fine. I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying that I just didn't think of that. I didn't consider at that moment that, oh, I could just join late, or I could. You also later suggested I take my MacBook to the other room, and I said, yeah, I'll probably be late, but right. So my point is that the focus has to be on the solution and
Yes,
not
love that.
on the problem. There's no
Yes,
problem,
yes,
but
I love that.
something was uncomfortable. It doesn't mean we ignore the cues, but we have to investigate like what, how did I not feel included? What was not like all you had to do was say, I think we could like you the reason that you felt all that pain is because you presumed I'm not including you. I, I'm including you. I'm always including you. So say what you
Yeah,
want,
yeah, yeah. No,
you
I
know?
see that. I see that. I could have just said, um, oh, like, couldn't you come late to the
Right. You
meeting?
could just say
Yeah,
whatever you want, right?
yeah.
And so then when then we talk about it and it comes up and I don't really even realize there's a problem.
Hmm.
And then we approach it later and you're like, I didn't feel included. It was really hard for me. And then you might say something like, why couldn't we do this? Or we couldn't, I don't know. Why couldn't we? I don't know. I didn't think of it. Right. So it's that what I'm
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to illustrate is that the problem was crafted from lots of, and it's not your fault. Again, I do this too sometimes. I tend to do it when I get pulled into stuff like this. Like that's when I start to create these weird things because I guess I have woundings around I guess acceptance primarily. So if somebody's like not accepting what I'm doing, then I start to feel like I'm being criticized and like I'm not good enough and all these other things. And I'm fine with that because I feel that way almost all day when I'm talking to pretty much everyone. Because most people are fairly negatively oriented. They seem to cling to their pain, which I understand. And, you know, I don't blame anyone for that. But at the same time, it does not, it basically feels for me like I'm in a constant state of trying to heal someone else's judgment of themselves. I don't, I have stories come up around my own acceptance, but I know that that's not even what's happening. That that basically in that scenario, you sort of don't feel like your voice is valued for some reason from some past stuff, maybe even past stuff with me.
Would it be
And
okay if I just share what my feeling was? I, I felt I would have been, I'm not saying this is right, but I think what stopped me from just saying, oh, why couldn't you come later is I felt that it would be intrusive or something for me to say that was like, so I guess I felt like not included. Or I was making myself not included or something.
yeah,
Um,
that's yeah. And that's why I have problems with it because from my perspective, you generated the entire issue on your own in your mentation and then approached me with this problem that I have not seen. And
what
so
does
I
the word mentation mean? Is that like thinking?
just means thinking basically, yeah.
Okay.
Basically the thinking part of the mind will mentation, yeah. Mentalization. It's the same, I think. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not sure why I use that word. I don't use that word that often, but
I can
again, there's nothing wrong with any of that, but then it leaves me stuck because you're talking about something that is not real. That didn't happen. So I don't.
Meaning my human feeling of, oh, he's made this decision about
The
this,
feelings are real. Like the
and I'm
feelings,
not
the feelings are real.
Yeah.
It feels real because we think that's what's happening. So it feels just as real as any other thing in this world to us. But on my side, I'm watching you create a false story about what I did in this interaction, what I did, right? And how I wasn't inclusive.
Yes.
And I'm like, I was nothing. I am as I am. I was called upon to provide fatherly duties, and I said to try and include you very specifically. I immediately just said, instead of waiting or whatever, I just tried to say, I don't think I can make it. I didn't say I won't. I wasn't. And I'm always open to solution oriented, like, well, could we try doing this or could we try doing that? Like solutions, I may say, I don't think I can do that. Like I may not think that the solutions are the right way or something, but I'm always open to hearing them. And so the only reason I'm saying this is because from my perspective, nothing happened. And I'm now trying to defend a position that and because you still see that I've not included you, you don't feel heard because I'm not, I don't want to apologize for, I feel very called to try and speak very truly and authentically for myself. And I don't want to perpetuate these types of things where people judge themselves or make decisions about themselves that whatever it is, and then tell me that it's my problem that they've done that. I can help them with it. I can help anyone with this, but they have to be willing to just look at the illusion they're making, or I can't help them. I can't help them move out of the suffering they create for themselves without, otherwise there's nothing for me to do. I can't, so I get stuck because it's a crafted thing. And the only option is for me to either say, that's not real and you need to let go of it, or I just tell you, thank you for sharing with me. And there's nothing else to do. There's no service for me to provide that I can see other than, for me to say, oh, I'm so sorry, I'll include you next time. No, that's just making you think that this thing that you made is real. That's just perpetuating this idea that I did something. I didn't do anything. So I get stuck when that happens. I don't see a response. And if there's a better way that I can do it, then I'm open to it. I don't want to hurt, and I don't want to claim that people's issues with what's going on are not real. I know they're real to them in the moment. I know that the belief is real, that it feels real. There's real emotions. I get it. But that doesn't make it my thing to solve for them.
So just to summarize, everything you're saying, I agree with. And so basically, if we're uncomfortable in a situation, we can just sort of look at it ourselves, feel the feelings, look at it, and just think, what could I do differently in the future to maybe shift what happens?
That's what I mean when I say there's often nothing to talk about once we forgive it all, because once we forgive it, that's when the pathways to clarity, to truth open. Like we can't see beyond the illusion we make until we forgive it, like till we let go of that story. So so no matter if you come to me or stay with yourself or whatever you do, while that thing, that issue is an issue and not forgiven, and I'm not even talking about forgiving me, just forgiving that this thing, just realizing that thing that isn't what I thought it was. It's not what I thought it was. Until that happens, then we don't see the pathway to the solution. So we have to just literally not feed that and then turn towards the solution. And when we do that, we'll usually notice things we can just do differently. And then there may be some stuff that we can say, like, I don't know what I could have done differently in that moment. It just didn't occur to me that I could just show up late and with the MacBook in the other room, probably so that we could have this whole conflict, right? So, like, there's not, I don't know. That's the other thing too, is a good way to notice if we're in a thing that's, like, just think, what could he have done differently? Could he have actually done anything differently with this? Like, just if you put yourself in my shoes there, and, the only thing that you've sort of suggested I may have done differently was have a different idea. And I don't control my ideas. They, or what occurs to me to try and do and things, right? So we can see that, I mean, and unless I'm wrong, if there's something I can do better, I'm open to it, but I'm just trying to illustrate that if there's nothing the other person can really do about it, and they're just being themselves and doing what they think is right, and then there's a problem, then maybe there's something that I can do about it, like whoever's having the problem. But if I can't think of something that I can do about it, and I can't think of something they can do it, maybe there's no problem, as well. So, but I understand too, like, it's easy to say this from the place of having no problem. It's easy to see there's no problem when you're not in the problem. You see what I'm saying? So, so we have to be really present and mindful with ourselves, basically, to notice when we're in one of those sort of situations, and we have to just try to, like you said, go within and forgive it. And from there, the solutions become evident to us. It opens up.
Until we talked about it just now, I didn't really see that I could have just said, oh, well, why can't you just come late or whatever? I didn't see that. So I do think if you can approach it peacefully, that there can be value in talking these things out with each other. If you come from a peaceful, forgiving place, like if I said, gosh, that was really hard for me. Do you see anything that I'm not seeing about the situation? Could you be some eyes for me? Maybe I have a blind spot, because I think I had a blind spot. I didn't really see that I could have just said that.
Can I share something that's really important? And it's, humans see things ass backwards, and this is really important. When we feel a problem of some kind, it's not the opportunity we think it is to go fix the problem in the world, in the reality, like to change things, to, that's how we have been taught, and that's how we feel natural, just due to the way we've grown up. But we're trying to correct an echo of our own energy. Like, we'll always be behind the beat because we're correcting the outcome of the problem that's here. So we have to, when we have a problem, the way to fix the problem is to recognize There is no problem. That's the fix. To learn that the problem that we're feeling is our traumas coming up from something. And it doesn't mean that like, it doesn't mean that we be hard on ourselves or anything. But there's no problem. And it takes varying attempts to realize. So basically, if we're trying to ascend and evolve, essentially what we're trying to eventually do, slowly but surely, or in one fell swoop, we're trying to realize that we are perfect as we are. And it's actually only from that realization that everything's okay that the pathways to corrective change or positive change open. So we all know that obviously action has consequence in the world, right? But we will take fear action until we correct this problem, which is our feelings and our beliefs. So we'll end up taking fear-based action, which will just perpetuate the problem we perceive. If we don't perceive a problem, then we'll just be able to see, oh, there's all these other avenues to go, and the problem will fall away. It'll just fall away from what we experience moving forward. And it's really challenging to orient ourselves into this way because we're not taught this way. We evolved out of animalistic impulse. Animalistic impulse is like, I feel hungry, I better chase down a squirrel or whatever, right? That's what we evolved out of. So it's not our fault that we do this as humans, but it's backwards because we can't correct an external problem outside of us unless we do it within.
So just getting back to the example, what I hear you saying is the most important aspect of moving through something like this is to notice in yourself what feelings are coming up. Is there a story here? Is there something I can heal here? So just using the example, what came up for me was I did not feel included. And I felt, I didn't feel included. So the most important work is looking at your own story when you get triggered like this. And I'm great at doing that. I do that all the time. And that's the spiritual work. And I see that. And then for me, at least, there does also, for me, seem to be some regard for the human's experience. Yeah. And how the human's experience might go more smoothly going forward. So for the human to be able to be like, oh, what I can do is just, say, oh, why can't you just come to the meeting later? So to me, I see value in all of it.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that if you didn't have the belief that you could not speak that to me, that problem wouldn't have arrived. So if it arrives, your indication is to let go of the belief that caused you to act that way. So going forward, you wouldn't. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to do about the problem. The activity of correcting the belief will fix the problem because the belief is the only thing that could be called a problem. But even that is not a problem. It's just a misperception. It's just a misperception of reality. It's not a problem.
I agree. I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah, so you have to do all the steps you were saying, care about your feelings, love yourself, experience what you're feeling, delve into the story, but then you have to let go of the story. give it away. You can't
Yeah.
hold it onto it and hold it, because that's what perpetuates the belief. Is
Yeah.
this the belief is the foundation, and each belief has this story, that story, this story, that in a tree, right?
Yeah.
And so we're figuring out, okay, I'm in this story. The other stories are built from a belief. So if we dissolve the belief away, the stories fall apart on their own. And then there's the next time the situation arises, we just act empowered and we say, why don't you just do this instead, you idiot? Why don't you just come late, you oof, you oaf, right? Like, I didn't think of it because I didn't think of it. But you don't have to call me a name or anything, obviously, but I just mean, in
I
the
don't.
empowered state, you would just say, come late then. Like, can't you just come late? Why can't you come late? Is there a reason you can't come late? Like, I don't know, that type of thing. And then I'd be like, oh, yeah, okay. Like, and that's exactly what I did when you brought it up. I said, oh, yeah, good idea. I was excited, right? Because it was a solution. I wanted to come. So,
Yeah.
you know,
It's really, what's also like really funny to me is part of the reason I didn't say anything was I was like, oh, this is a catalyst. This is a catalyst. I'm
oh,
supposed to just not say anything and just deal with it.
well, that's the thing. You couldn't have properly dealt with it in that moment. Like, you dealt with it precisely as you were capable to deal with it in that moment. So, like, the next time though, it'll be a
Well,
little
I
different.
think what I'm saying is it's just funny because it's almost like I was being in the moment too spiritual about it and not just responding kind of naturally, like how you would respond, like, oh, why can't you just come late? What I'm saying is I was operating on all these different levels, but kind of mistakenly.
Yeah, well, no, but I think you were right though, because you felt a lot about it. So if you're emotionally swayed negative, especially negatively, about anything that happens, then I always recommend stepping away and just, like, but
Yeah, but all I'm saying is
like I
there's
it was a
it's
catalyst, but yeah, you weren't
very
able.
it was a very complicated experience for me.
Yeah.
And what I take away from it, and this teaching has been coming through me a ton from my guidance, is you can just embody the the what you want to embody. Like, you don't have to talk about it. You can just be it.
Hmm.
Like, maybe the possibly highest way for me to have moved through all of that would have been to, if I didn't end up saying something, would have been to, like, okay, what just happened for me? What was I feeling? Oh, I was feeling like I can't say anything, that I'm not included, blah, blah, blah. So, okay, so I must have some trauma around that.
Yeah, and
And it makes perfect sense. Like, I
it
was
does.
not allowed to really speak in my childhood, basically.
Uh,
Um, so, and then to sort of just dissolve that old pattern of behavior and then show up from then on in with my voice. And
my partner wants me to express myself. My partner wants me to offer solutions. My partner wants my input. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. And part of it's my contribution, because I've been really sensitive to some of the ways that you've expressed some of the things that you've experienced, and I keep saying I don't want to be criticized, and these types of things. So then in those moments you're like, oh, I don't want him to feel criticized and stuff too, probably.
yeah,
So
I think
so
that was a part of it,
I'm
sure.
I'm aware that, like, I've contributed to some of this as well, just with, like, from my, like, I've kind of made you sort of hesitant to speak sometimes, and things like that. But um I never have a problem with, like, just solution oriented you know, stuff like that. I'm all good with that. It doesn't make a
Yeah,
difference.
yeah,
It's only when I feel like I'm being dragged into something that I'm not I don't see how I'm a part of it so much. I don't see what
yeah.
I did to contribute. I don't really see how I can understand how you experienced it. Like, from your perspective, when you describe it, I can understand why you would feel that way. It makes perfect sense. But like, I don't know what I can do about it. So yeah. Anyway, I think it's all really good. I think that the main thing is, and what we'll find when if we go the way that I was saying, where we have a problem in our life or with our relationship, and we address it here, and heal ourselves of our beliefs and our attachments that we have to whatever desires that we kind of like, you can think of it this way: we we desire something when we think we want it, right? Like, but in a moment that can change too. Like, we can suddenly not desire it, or something that's undesired can become desired. Like, a heroin addict doesn't tend to go through life desiring to become a heroin addict, right? They don't really desire heroin, but then one day they get offered it, they're in a low place maybe, and they decide to try it, and now it becomes something they desire. So we can see that these desires are perfectly malleable to our minds and to our perceptions. And what we need to do is recognize that our desires are like our kind of like opinions almost on what we should receive in our reality or what we shouldn't receive in our reality. And we have to be really humble about, like, this is just my thoughts on it. We have to be really humble about that and say, like, this thing has shown up, the universe has shown this up, I created this thing into my reality somehow. I don't necessarily know how, I don't know the mechanics of it, I don't really understand what it all is, but this is here to show me something. And if I can correct the problem that I feel inside of myself, like, that's what the universe is asking us to do. They're not asking us to go change things and make sort of arguments for or convince others to do something differently, or any of that type of stuff. And the perfect byproduct of the inner healing is that at the end of it, the other person, whether they continue that type of behavior or not, there's no more perceived issue. And most likely you just won't see it anymore. Like, you won't even notice it. And
Yeah.
so
So
yeah,
maybe I can give another example of what you're talking about. Um, I have been really in a lot of pain around what my human perceives as a lack of togetherness with you. Um, we haven't seen each other very much physically in the past few months. And we've been having a lot of cyclings of, I would say, some distance between us from various things. And so, in addition to not seeing each other physically, to my human, it has felt that there's just been a lot of distance uh, in general in our interaction. And this has been really, really, really very challenging for my human. So what I hear you saying, and I know this, excuse me, from the spiritual perspective, is that there's something that I'm being asked to look at in myself. And I love the mirror exercise. I use it all the time. So the mirror exercise is like, I'm unsettled or I'm upset at my partner because blank blank. So I'll just do it right now. So I could say I feel upset at my partner because It feels like he's not close to me. He's distant from me. And then we change all the nouns and pronouns to oneself. So it would become, I am upset at myself because I am distant from myself.
Yeah.
I'm not coming to myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I have been doing that a ton. And yeah, so what I want to say here is, of course, everything that comes up with our partners is a mirror to ourselves. And at the same time, for me, I feel it's very helpful for peaceful communication to not criticize the other person for what they're feeling and what they are experiencing, and to support them and scaffold with them. And I think that is a real route to peaceful communication, to sort of meet people where they are. Like, oh, this particular issue is really hard for my person and they're moving through their stuff. And how can I support them and not criticize them, and just be there to help them through it.
I think what you're interpreting as criticism in these cases is just me defending the truth, and then you feeling maybe hurt or criticized. I always repeat that your feelings are perfect. Everything's perfect. I always say these things, but I also say stuff like, how could it be possible for you to be distant from yourself? So you said the statement, the mirror statement. I feel distant from myself. So obviously the mind is creating an illusion, right? So it's not possible to be distant from yourself. It's like saying that I don't exist. So maybe that sounds like criticism, but the only reason I'm doing that is because you're approaching me with something that is not true, and you're making it the way that we have been doing it in the past has been sort of like, Sean, here's a problem that we have and we need to solve it. And I respond by saying the problem is your perception of yourself. And that might sound like it's critical, but it's just the truth. It's not my opinion. That's just what is happening. When we are feeling lonely, we are not accepting ourselves. That's what's happening. And when we don't accept ourselves, it's because we feel that we do not have our connection with spirit, or our connection with ourself, our love, our peace. We don't have that, and we think it's gone, but it's not gone. We've just tricked ourselves. So the highest form of service I can offer you is to tell you that that's what's happening. And so if it sounds critical, it's not meant to. I'm not saying that there's a problem with having that perception. It is that perception specifically which eventually causes the person to realize, oh, this perception isn't real. I don't have to do this anymore. But because for us and for you, it's a core thing, and it was for me too. The only reason I'm able to see it is because I've already went through that particular thing, feeling alone, feeling away from people, feeling isolated, and all day I feel totally alien to everyone. Everyone seems like an animal, a zoo animal, in a way, not in a derogatory way, but in a just different than me way, yet also the same. It's a very weird place for me to be. So I'm saying that I understand loneliness very, very well. And I know the loneliness that comes up in me sometimes is the same thing. And so I'm just telling you the truth. I'm not criticizing.
Yeah, I think the point to me, and this is, I think, part of the energy I bring to the planet, is really approaching these things with a lot of compassion and really seeing, oh, my partner really is in a lot of pain here. And yes, they may be in an illusion, and hopefully they'll move through it, but where are they right now? And of course, to speak the truth to them, but to me at least, to also hold a lot of compassion for them and some support for what is very difficult for them. So like if they are in despair, to have compassion for the despair they are in, and to support them, there, to meet the human where they are, is the orientation that I bring to the planet.
I'll just say that when I'm observing a human separating from themselves, it feels painful. Um, because of my compassion. The highest service is to offer them the truth. If they don't want to see themselves, that's their choice. It's not my fault. You said yourself the truth is a cleansing energy. Just because it doesn't sound or feel compassionate to the receiver does not mean it's not offered with love and compassion and peace.
Yeah, I'm just saying, for me and my teachings towards peaceful communication between two people, that I do think peace can be further developed when there is also a lot of compassion and empathy for what the other person is going through. That is my truth, and that I do believe is a big part of why I'm here on the planet, is to approach everything with so much compassion and empathy for what the other person is going through, along with the truth, of course, but both of those for me.
Okay.
Did we have any other points about
No, I don't
peaceful?
think so.
Okay, so you want to end here?
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I did have one other point. Is it okay if I share one other point?
Yeah, absolutely.
The other point I wanted to share here is, whatever energy you are bringing to an interaction is the energy you will receive back. And Sean and I have really been experiencing this a lot with each other, that we've been saying this thing, fear is contagious, that when one of us is in fear around whatever, like around our relationship, for instance, then the other person seems to like pick that up. And if they're kind of swayed, they are going to go into fear too. Not that that has to happen. A lot of times it doesn't. A lot of times one of us will be in fear and the other person is able to not go there, which is really great. But I guess the worst case scenario is if you're both in fear. And I think this happened to us like yesterday. I think we were both in fear about our relationship, and things just really like spiraled downwards. So I just think it's so vital to understand fear can be very contagious in our relationships. And that higher perspective of choosing love and faith over the fear. And then we're going to most likely see that reflected back to us, that our partner is also then choosing love and fear, or sorry, love and faith, love, faith, and forgiveness. So I would say like the worst personal interactions, Sean, you and I have had is when we both have gone into fear. And like when one of us gets out of it, and like for me, I woke up this morning and I felt out of fear and I just felt back to love and faith. And then good things happened. Like I had that realization about, oh, feedback with positive emotionality and some other realizations. So it's just, and I know, Sean, you talk so much about in third density, this is the lesson, choosing love and faith over fear, choosing love and faith over fear. That's the main lesson here. So choosing that for yourself and then understanding when you choose that for yourself, you're helping to just create that with your partner as well, choosing love and faith. Yeah, so that was just one other point I wanted to bring in.
Yeah, I think just in general, to simplify it really, to make it just really simple, when we're being offered fear by the universe is asking us to forgive our fear and to offer love back, to respond in love. That's the whole reason for this entire density, is that particular choice at every moment. That's all we're ever really choosing. So when we are offered fear, we have a choice there. Like, are we going to join in fear, or are we going to stop the fear and offer love? And it's not always, depending on how charged up it is in our experience and like what our, what we've experienced in ourselves and our lives and what traumas we've had and things, stories that we haven't forgiven, basically, like traumas we haven't forgiven, that will determine how much fear we experience. The more we forgive the stories and realize that the stories were perfect for us, that it was what prepared us to be strong, that these sort of battles we fought in ourselves are what made us strong and is what allowed us to realize that we don't have to fight at all. We can just lay down our weapons, right? And just start walking. The battle's over. So the density is over for our race, for our Earth. So the battle's done. We've conquered fear. We now individually and collectively are being asked to end that cycling that is still echoing, because it was millennia old, right? So we can let go of that fear, but that's what that's why the universe is offering it to us through our partner or through our kids or through our whatever. The universe is asking us to trust and choose love. And the thing we fear may happen, and it probably won't be as bad as we feared it would be. So yeah, that's all I had to say on that.
Alrighty, so thank you so much for joining us. If any of this resonated with you, please, we'd love to hear your comments about it. And we also have an amazing course called the Namaste Method course, which is so much, I think, about like love and compassion towards your partner, being your God self towards your partner, which is, of course, is just all about love and forgiveness and acceptance. And there's a link in the description for the Namaste course. It's very reasonably priced, and there's a money back guarantee. So you can't go wrong. And just thank you so much again for joining us.
Thank you.
So much love to everyone.
Bye.
Bye.